Stevie, I'm a grateful believer. I'm a recovered alcoholic and a member of the Golden Text Group of Hollywood, Florida. God bless you guys. Now,
Stevie, I love you.
I love you. Good to see you, Jason. I know you guys are expecting Russell and all the big cheeses, and they'll be back soon. But I want to tell you, we're going to have a great experience tonight. We're going to bring God into the meeting.
Amen.
And no matter who the speaker is up here, as long as the person is representing the power that this big book is talking about, you're going to have a great experience. Those of you that came to hear a drunk log or any of that kind of stuff, that's not what we're doing here. We're talking about the power that changed our lives. I know a lot of you don't know me because you came here for a different speaker, but let me give you a little background. I grew up in this house, not this halfway house, but in halfway houses. I've been in this house since I'm 24 years old. I'm 57 now. I came here and I thought I was going to stop in. I went to the back room. There's a small back room on a Thursday night. It's called the 11th Step Group. Is it still there, Wendy? Where's Wendy? What happened to Wendy? God, that was weird. Turned around and Wendy looked a lot like Steve.
It's still there.
It's still there. That was my home group for years and years. It's not there. Well, it was there. There was a beautiful woman there by the name of Wendy, and her husband Paul was there, and there was a guy named Myron there, may God rest his soul, and Danny, may God rest his soul, and a person named Ruth Rogers, may God rest her soul, and a person named Maury, may God rest his soul. Matter of fact, the whole group was incredible. And I was 24 years old, and I had no knowledge of Alcoholics Anonymous, but I was excited not to smoke crack. I was excited not to be rolled up in a carpet anymore. I was excited not to have to go to detox anymore. I was excited to be in any place other than where I was at. And I got in there and I was willing to do whatever they said. I was like eager and excited. They said, sit down and shut up. And I was like, yes. And there was a coffee pot in the back. And being with a hospitality background, I used to take the coffee pot around and pour people's coffees. That was my little service position. And then then Ruth Rogers, who had 50 years of sobriety at the time, she allowed me to go buy the cookies, which I could never do right. I always bought too expensive of cookies, and she's like, that's the wrong cookies. There's a special 12-step house cookie. I used to get like the fancy ones. So I had to pay for them out of my pocket, which was awesome. It's like, that's not the budget. And I grew up in here and I thought everything was great and everything was great, and I grew up in the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. I was excited about the fellowship. The fellowship will keep you sober for a while. The fellowship can get you excited for a while, but the fellowship will not have you change in the right direction. The fellowship will point you to people like Pat that'll help you get through the steps, like Wendy, like Janet, but the fellowship will not get you better if you have the mental illness that I have. I did not become an alcoholic because I drank. I drank because I was previously an alcoholic. And the moment I took a drink, I was like, oh, that's exactly what I've been looking for. At first it was criminal behavior, then it was women, then it was women that were live women and not women in print. Then it was alcohol. Those of you that are older understand what I meant by women in print. For the younger people, this digital, and we used to have print back then. You know what I'm saying. That's my centerfolds. Yeah, we didn't do this. We did this. And I was addicted to anything that made me feel good because I felt so bad about me. I needed something to feel different. And if you feel like you're nothing and you take something and you become an almost is better than nothing. And sometimes if I use the right type of concoction, I became a somebody. An almost that sometimes would become a somebody. That's something you're not just going to let go quickly or slowly. Just because you've been arrested or you have some DUIs or you lose people or from overdoses, I wasn't just going to give that up. That was the only thing that ever worked for my mental illness. When I was 12 years old, I gave a kid a gun in my neighborhood, and I told him he could shoot at me as long as he didn't leave the playground we were playing at. which was my backyard. As long as he didn't leave the playground we were playing at, I told him he could shoot at me because my self-esteem was so low that I didn't want him to leave. And I was willing to be shot at instead of him leaving. And he shot out my right eye. Not his fault. My entire 20s, up until 34 years old, I blamed this kid for shooting my eye out. One of the amazing things that's going to happen if you stay long enough is you're going to do these steps. And one of the steps is this step called the fourth step. And the fourth step is not just something about writing your resentments. The fourth step is actually something that's going to help change your life. Oh, there's one of my sponsors who hasn't called me in like 3 weeks. Hey, buddy. The fourth step changed my life because as I'm writing this kid's name down, and I'm like, I hate this kid. This is my number one resentment. This kid shot my eye out. I thought of all different scenarios on how I could shoot him. I was going to shoot him with a bow and arrow. I was going to lay a trap. And as I'm writing the fourth step, I write his name down. Kevin. Reason why? Shot my eye out. Kevin shot my eye out. Where was I wrong? What do you mean, where was I wrong? The kid shot my eye out. Oh, where was I wrong? I gave him the gun. It was my backyard. I came up with the game. And the fourth thing, I didn't move fast enough. It was actually, Kevin was actually a victim in my insecurity about me giving him the gun, coming up with the game, my backyard, my gun. And the moment I put it all on paper and I saw where I was wrong and where was I to blame, the resentment that I've been holding for 20 years was gone. My mother's from Brooklyn. She's tough. You guys see her now. You're like, oh, she looks beautiful, blue eyes and everything. Well, that's not the way it was. My mother carried a stick, a wooden Italian spoon, like Clint Eastwood. And she would whack me over the head with it. And I would have blood streaming out of the top of my head. And there was more broken spoons in my house. The big guy in the back knows. He probably got hit a lot too. I got whacked. And I had my mother on there. Whacked me with the wooden spoon. Made me bleed. Where was I to blame? I used to tell her to go F herself. I wouldn't get out of bed. I lied and told the principal of the school that my parents were getting divorced, and that's why I couldn't take the test. They called my mother at home and said, I'm so sorry, Marie Boyarsky, that you're getting a divorce. Is there anything we can do for you? My mother's like, we're not getting a divorce. Where'd you get this information? Well, your son couldn't take the test today because he said that you guys were in divorce proceedings. My mother said, please come to the house. And then she whacked me with a spoon. You know why she whacked me with a spoon? I needed to be whacked with a spoon. So the fourth step is going to help you with all that. I didn't know that when I came here. But you guys told me to work the steps, and I didn't work the steps, and I got sicker. I got bigger because I was on steroids. And I had some money because I wasn't smoking it. So I used to park my triple black Mustang Cobra outside. It was numbered. It was one of the numbered Cobras. And I used to park it right outside there in the handicap parking. Where it says handicap, I used to park it there. Because I figured that was for people that didn't have a Cobra. And I got sicker and sicker. And then driving out of a meeting of the Fort Lauderdale men's group on I think it's a Wednesday night. Wednesday night Fort Lauderdale meeting. Yep, I saw a woman on the side of the street. She looked like she needed a ride. And wanted to be of service. I said, how much would it be to give you a ride? Dale, explain that, Dale. Explain what that means. And I was arrested for solicitation. No, I was not purchasing. She was a cop. I was purchasing, not selling. Appreciate the one up there. And they put me in the drunk tank here sober. 2 years sober coming out of a meeting, and I'm inside the drunk tank, and there was members of the 12-step house drunk in the drunk tank. And they're like, Stevie B, what's up? What are you doing here? And I'm like, I'm with hospitals and institutions. We're taking meetings in the jail. Right now with a new program. We want to get right in with you guys. How can I be of assistance? And then eventually I met my next victim, which turned out to be my wife, and I thought that she could fix this God-sized hole that I had. I thought if I can get this woman to marry me, the pain that I have inside me that's not being fixed with steroids, that's not being fixed with criminal behavior, that's not being fixed with picking up women that were not her, maybe she can fix this God-sized hole in me. Because she was shiny and new and Latina, and she worked in a circus, which was kind of like all my qualifications. Circus, check. Latina, check.
You can't make this up. You can't make this shit up.
Listen, if you don't think any of this is real, this is true. Maddie will tell you. None of it's made up. Janet will tell you. Sheldon will tell you this is true. And I married the girl from the circus. And for 6 months, the God-sized hole in me was fixed. But if you try to fix it with anything other than God, it won't work permanently. And then she became not enough. And then I thought maybe if I drank, not use drugs, but maybe if I just drank socially once in a while on a Saturday night with a dinner from a restaurant, maybe that would work. And I tried to go out and drink some fine wine, but I had never really experienced fine wine. You have to have some background in fine wine. So I had like background in like Chinese food, cardboard box type of wine. And so I went to August Moon Chinese food restaurant on Federal Highway in Hollywood, and I gave away 7 years for the idea that I can drink fine wine. And then within 24 hours, I was doing drugs. Wasn't doing hard drugs. I was doing prescription drugs. Not my prescription, but other people's prescription. And I was off to the races. And it took me 2 years to get back. And in that 2 years, it was the most unbelievable, debilitating, self-ego crushing. The beautiful new wife that I married served me with a restraining order. She asked me to leave our home. She was the only person from the country of Colombia, where she's from, that was here in the United States, and I was too much for her. And she asked me to leave and to move into a halfway house. And I tried to get all uppity in her face. I'm like, this is my house. She's from Colombia. Yeah, you know the rest of the story. Yeah, Christine knows. Yeah, she carries a machete, and a foldable machete in the purse. And she was like, you go. So I went. And I landed in a halfway house around the corner from here called Liberty House. And I really had every intention of getting clean. And I started praying on my knees in the morning. And I started praying on my knees at night, because my sponsor told me that I needed to ask for the gift of sobriety in the morning and then thank God at the end of the day if I got that gift. And for 30 days I was all in. In 30 days I was showering. In 30 days I was eating. In 30 days I was going here to the 12-step house. And 30 days I was all in. And on the 31st day or around that, of course I don't know the exact day, I got on my knees in the morning, Anthony, but I had a plan to get high. You see, what's inside me even today, even 23 years later, is good Steve and bad Steve. And who I feed wins, and who I starve dies. The people that say they never thought about drinking again, or they never thought about criminal behavior again, or they never thought about doing illicit sexual acts again, I think it's amazing to live in your house I think it's amazing to live in your head. That's not my experience. I have ongoing mental illness that comes up with new theories and new ways. You heard of AI, this new thing, artificial intelligence, AI? I've had AI going on for 23 years. Creating new scenarios of debauchery. I'll be driving down the street, I'm like, oh, where did that even come? Where did that debaucherous thought even come from? I have AI software that's looking to make me crash at any time. And that AI software will win unless I work on the maintenance of my spiritual condition, which is feeding good Steve. And I was feeding good Steve on my knees, but then I got off my knees, and I decided to make a plan to get high that day. But to get high, you need money. I know some of you guys, need money. You go on runs with no money. You're like entrepreneur. I get it. I needed to have some money. You guys are like self-started. I get that, but I needed to have some money. So I call up my wife and I say to her, sweetheart, and she's got a restraining order against me. So she knows I'm already full of poop. And she says, what? And I said, could I have $199 so that I could get the special cell phone so I can call California where my sponsor lived in San Francisco? And she tells me to hold on, and I think that she's checking the bank account. But it turns out she had joined Al-Anon. I see that this doesn't carry this much weight in this group. You know what he went, ooh. Well, let me explain to you what Al-Anon is. Al-Anon is a secret society of people that are meeting behind our backs right now as we speak in sordid rooms across Fort Lauderdale, telling the other people in those meetings what our secret lingo is. Now you probably understand a little bit better what the secret society that did out. Now let me tell you, she joined Al-Anon. Right, exactly. And her Al-Anon sponsor told her to give me the money. And they set me up. That's right. Which is probably illegal in Al-Anon. It was an unsanctioned money delivery. And they put $199 on my money card, and I'm a crack addict in the halfway house. And I run over to the Sprint store so that I can buy a cell phone, pretend that I'm going to a meeting, call the owner of the halfway house, call my wife, and put on this whole show while I'm having a drink around the corner at Brownies or one of these places. And I'll brush my teeth at 2 o'clock because I've figured out I've developed some type of junkie superpower where I can now use for a couple hours and stop at any time because I'm clean for like 32 days. And I come up with this idea that now that I'm 32 days, I can probably use like a gentleman one time. And I get up off my knees and I run to the Sprint store. And this is how God showed up big time in my life. Gustavo knows he was there. He was. The guy behind the counter at the Sprint store is a guy from our home group in the morning at 8:30 in the morning or 8 o'clock in the morning called the Victory AA group. And he says to me behind the counter, Drew, Stevie B. You understand? Let me paint the scenario. I'm telling the guy behind the counter I need to have the cheapest cell phone you have, and I need to be out of here in 15 minutes. And I'm my stomach is going. I know what I'm about to do. I know I'm going to have $175 to go around the corner. And I say to the guy, I need to have the cheapest cell phone. I need to be out of here in 15 minutes. And he goes, welcome back. We saw you yesterday at Victory for picking up under 30 days. And God throws me this incredible life preserver. And step 2, I don't know if I played it out in my head, but that was step 2, came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. God is the only one that can restore me to sanity. This group is the only one that could restore me to sanity. My support group is the only one that could. The only one that can't restore me to sanity is me, because I created the insanity. The same mind that created the problem is not the mind that's going to be able to heal the problem. I need to have outside sanity forces. Picture this. I come up with this plan to destroy my life and then rely on me to undo that plan before it happens. That's not how it works. If I come up with a plan to destroy my life, I need outside forces to restore me to sanity. Came to believe that a power greater than myself the group, a group of drunks, good orderly direction, the Almighty, the Creator, my Lord and Savior, it's going to have to come from outside. And God sent Drew, me to Drew, from the Victory AA meeting, and I didn't get on. And then 11 and a half months later, I was invited to come back and live in the big bed in my house. And I wasn't living with Eddie anymore, Stinky Feet Mason, none of the guys. I was actually going to sleep on a mattress that had, like, coils. You guys know what I mean. And my wife was downstairs cooking eggs, and I was on my knees thanking the Lord for bringing me back home. And I reached underneath my mattress and to turn the mattress over because I thought maybe it was lumpy because I hadn't been there a year, and there was my stash. And I pulled the stash out. Like my booze, if you don't know what I mean, like the stash. I mean, this group looks like they know about stash. It looks like a stash type of group. And I had never been able to say no to my drug of choice ever. Until that day. With the power of God, you could say no. Really, with the power of God, you could say yes. Forget about saying no. With the power of God, right, Mark? With the power of God, you could say yes to Him and no to the alcohol. And I got up off my knees and I started crying, and I called my wife and she started crying, and we both knew that I was in because this was my first night home or my first weekend home, and she didn't know if I was going to destroy our lives again. But when I called her and I showed her the stuff that was in the house, she started crying and I started crying, and I realized I was in. And one day at a time, with the help of this house and my sponsor, who I met, Russell, that you're going to see, that's going to come back next week. Russell was speaking down in Miami. He was doing a step series at the West Dixie Club. And I walked into that group, and I had been in AA 7 years, and I had a God of my misunderstanding. What does that mean? Third step says, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God. And then the next line says, as you understand Him. But what people do is they misunderstand what the step actually said. They think it says, made a decision to turn my will and my life to a God that I understand, or a God that I made up, or a God of the... No, it doesn't say that. It says, made a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God. God. As you understand Him. And when Russell was speaking that day, he had out the Bible in an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. I mean, that is cutting edge stuff. I'd never seen anything like it. I seen it one time. One time I saw it in AA, and they threw the guy out, and like people followed him out and threw rocks at his car. It was a serious thing. And I said to my dad, even though I had like a couple hours sober, I said, Dad, you can't do that. You can't have a Bible in AA. This is going to be terrible. And Russell was talking about Luke 10 in the 12th step, that every day we have to act the Good Samaritan. You see, if you don't know the Bible, then you don't know what the Good Samaritan is. You don't even know what they're talking about inside the step. So it's not like you have to be a Bible person, but it would be good to have a reference when they say you have to act the Good Samaritan every day. I mean, that seems kind of important, isn't it, Pat? That seems kind of important if you have to act something every day. So he brings out Luke 10, and he tells us the story of the Good Samaritan, and I'm flabbergasted. I've been in AA 7 years, and I'm a God of my misunderstanding. The God that goes to strip clubs with me, the God that goes to porno booths with me, the God that punches people in this clubhouse, hit a person with a chair sober. That's my God. He's all loving and all forgiving. He's like a sugar daddy God. I can do anything I want, and all I have to do is apologize, and He's right there with me. Turns out there's a God. He has a first name. It's God. And that day I knew something I was doing wrong for 7 years. And I started to follow the man that you're going to hear next week. I started following him around, and he pointed me to a book called The Good Book and the Big Book. It's an adjunct, and he pointed me to a serious book that changed my life, which is called Dr. Bob and the Good Old Timers. I know Pat's read it. I know Maddie's read it. I know Jana's read it. Dr. Bob and the Good Old Timers. And what did it point out to? It pointed out to the line in where it says, rarely have we seen a person fail who was thoroughly followed. It's like almost like we're all smart people. If I tell you something political, you go check it out. If I tell you something about Bitcoin, you go check it out. If I tell you something about the gym, you go check it out. We come to Alcoholics Anonymous, it says, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path, and nobody even questions what the path is. We're just like, okay, rarely have we seen a person fail who's totally fallen away. Okay, that must be just how it works. But what did they actually mean? That means that during that time, there were people recovering and staying recovered and having a life beyond their wildest dreams because they were following a certain path. What's that path? And Russell said what the path was, and my mouth and my jaw opened up because I realized I've been following someone else's path. It wasn't AA. The founding fathers and women of this program said that they were following a path. The same path that Charlie D follows, the same one that Wendy follows, the same one that Sheldon follows, and Jimmy follows, the path of God. Amen. Does that mean we do it perfectly, Nancy? Of course not. We don't do it perfectly, but we follow the path of God. Or we follow the path of ourselves. Hence, being arrested for picking up a prostitute coming out of a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, following myself. Oh, it's shiny. I want it. Well, pull it up and pick it up. And that's what happened to me. I met Russell. Russell pointed me to you. You pointed me back to God. God pointed me to Bible. Bible pointed me to this meeting. Meeting pointed me to church. Church pointed me to a Bible study. I started doing this thing every day, praying on my knees, helping people, meeting guys like Mark, telling my guys, hey, Mark, there's a great meeting. Why don't you check it out? I am an enroller every single day for the power of Alcoholics Anonymous that points us to the power. You can't meet me in any arena during the day and me not tell you either about AA, church, Jesus, or cold plunging. One of those things. 5, 4. I am on fire for a changed life because I was a hot mess. They told me that as long as my dreams would line up with God's dreams, that God would bless my dreams. And we had a dream to have a baby. Now, for those of you that have heard the story 1,000 times, it's just that this is my story. I can't tell someone else's story. And we had went to an in vitro fertilization clinic, and we had went there, and we did shots, and we did all this stuff, and then we had eggs donated from the country of Colombia, and we hired a surrogate to carry the baby, and it was a very long process. And we were finally pregnant. And in the middle of that pregnancy, we lost the baby. And I wasn't prepared because I was now following God, and I was now doing all the things that you guys told me to, and I was really a good guy. And I thought good guys don't lose babies, and good guys don't get cancer, and good guys don't die, and good guys don't lose jobs, and sober guys, none of this stuff happens to. And I want to share something with you. Good people, all these things happen to. And amazing people have emphysema. And amazing people have cirrhosis that have nothing to do with using. And amazing people get cancer. And amazing people have their wives chopped up and put in a suitcase and are still sober in West Side Men's Group. I was with them this weekend. And amazing people, bad things happen to. Because we live in a fallen world. And we lost the baby. But I had a commitment that night. And I want you to hear this. Because I'm a guy that takes his commitments very seriously. When Jimmy asked me to speak at this meeting tonight, I was just at another meeting a couple minutes ago. That's why I'm a couple minutes late. I was at another meeting with Wendy last night. Praise God. I spoke at a meeting at 11 a.m. in California this afternoon. Tomorrow I'm speaking at a meeting at 6:30, and then a Bible study at 8:30. On Thursday I'm speaking at another meeting. On Friday I'm speaking at a meeting I just found out at 6:30, and then also my home group is at 8 o'clock. That's going to be a tight one. And then I have a 7 a.m. meeting at Crossroads that I'm speaking in person, which is in Delray. That's going to be a 3-meeting day, Friday. That's going to be serious business, and I'm going to need the entire power of God.
And Saturday morning.
And then Saturday morning with Sheldon. Thank you for the blessing. And then Saturday at 11. And then church on Sunday. And I get to do all that, Clarissa. We get to do all that because of what God has done for us. So what happened when we lost the baby? I had a commitment that night. And my wife had a commitment at Al-Anon, at the Melrose Park Al-Anon meeting that night. But how are we going to go if we just lost the baby? I can't stop crying. She can't stop crying. We have the baby room built in the house. Our entire life just got flushed down the toilet. But we had a commitment that night. My commitment was to take a meeting into a treatment center called CRS. Her commitment was to go to an Al-Anon meeting at the St. Sebastian's Church in Fort Lauderdale. We were both at our meetings that night. But what I didn't know is that while I was crying in the parking lot and I had my guys around me and they were crying with me And we were praying the third step prayer that we just did, Stephen, in the parking lot, because we don't speak unless we do the third step prayer. We're not going to come out and speak unless we ask God to speak through us. And I'm doing the third step prayer in the parking lot, and I'm crying. It was the same day we found out we lost the baby. And what I didn't know was there was a beautiful woman by the name of Jana that was in that treatment center. And she just happened to be looking outside the window at a group of men that were praying in the parking lot. And the one man that came in, he was crying. And he still carried the meeting in there that night. And that beautiful woman, Jana, was there that night. And it made an impression on her. Did it strike her sober? No. Did it make an impression that there's men that can cry in a parking lot and come inside and pray together and bring a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous inside a treatment center? You betcha it made an impression on her. And since then, she's sponsored hundreds of women, probably hundreds of women. And one of the most incredible women is one of the women that is right here, which is Nancy, who has sponsored hundreds of women. Now, did I know that night when I wanted to sit at home and put the blanket over my head and cry out to the Lord and say, how could you let our baby die? Did I know that there was going to be an impact on a person that was going to be in there that's still sober to this day, and the other guy, Doug, is still sober to this day, and the other guy, Danny, is still sober this day? Did I know that I was going to make an impact on their lives? No. I just knew that I had a commitment that night, and regardless of what was happening in my life, the commitment to Alcoholics Anonymous needs to be more important than our personal tragedies. And I brought the meeting in there that night. And she's my witness. Your hair looks great, by the way. And we're still sober today. And we went to go adopt a baby, and I can't adopt a baby because of the prostitute situation. Because on my record it says lewd and lascivious. So where are the attorneys in here? Or the degenerates? What is it, Sheldon?
Lewd and lascivious.
Yeah. So I'm not allowed to adopt a baby in the state of Florida. But God doesn't care what the statute says. He brought us up to a woman who came to our house, a Jewish woman by the name of Mindy, who looked at a giant picture of Jesus in my house, and she said, do you think that God gave you another chance? And I said, I know he did. And she said, so how can I not give you another chance? Which brought us up to a woman in the top of the United States by California and Canada. And we stood in front of her as she held our little beautiful baby on his first day of life. And she said, what would you like to name your son? We said, Joshua. And she said, why Joshua? We said, because in the Bible, Joshua 24:15 says, as for me and my house, we choose to serve the Lord. And she said, I'm not religious. We said, it just means that your son, our son's going to grow up in a godly home, and he has. He has. The last 13 years of my son's life, he's maybe heard me curse 5 times in 13 years. I used to curse 5 times on my way into a pizza parlor. God has changed all that. Not in all of us. My sponsor still curses like a degenerate, but he's an amazing man. It's a different situation. I need to be healed of that. And my son Joshua has grown up in a godly home. And am I having a little bit of problems with my wife this week? 25 years married. Am I having a little bit of problems with her this week? Yes, I am. Because this specific week is a week that God's pouring me out all over town. And Pat, I'm sure, knows that it's very difficult on our wives when a specific week like this happens where you have to speak, where you get the privilege of speaking 7 times. But my wife's like, I'm not married to A. She's like not happy right now. She's like, where are you going tonight? Another meeting? I'm like, yes, sweetheart, I'm going to another meeting, big book in hand. She's like, well, you know what? It's going to be like that sometimes. Because this thing that we've been given here is a privilege upon all privileges. And as much as she's upset with me for being at my 7th meeting in 2 days, she's at a Bible study with the women at Gray's house tonight. And she's leading the women with a recovery Bible study. And we're still carrying the message 25 years later. And this is the last thing I want to share with you. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to tell you that this thing is about staying sober. And you may even think that you're here to stay sober. And you may even think your entire problem was about staying sober. You may even think, as you're sitting here, that the reason I came to AA is because I couldn't stay sober. And you're right. That's the outward manifestation of the problem that you have. Which really behind that is a mental illness that tells you that you're not enough. But alcohol will make you enough. You're not enough, but drugs will make you enough. You're not enough, but gambling will make you enough. But you're not enough, but sex will make you enough. You have an inward manifestation of a conversation that's going on that's a broken conversation. That in Alcoholics Anonymous, through the steps, that conversation with the outside and the inside becomes congruent, which means we start thinking and acting the same way. We start doing things. Why am I with him? Why is he here? Why are you even here? Because the man makes sure that all these meetings that are done here gets out on the web so that people can't get here, can listen to the meetings. And that all the people that are online can watch the meetings. And do you know that he does that like 5 times a week? This is the Tuesday that I know about, but I know he also does it on Friday in a 3-hour meeting, and he does it on Saturday in a 3-hour meeting. That's just the 3 I know about. That's the thing that we have here. You're going to start to act differently, not because people are watching. You're going to start to act differently because something has changed inside you and you're going to want to do it. Not because of anything from the outside telling you you should do it. It's because you are going to love the new life that you have, that it's just going to start coming out around you, and you can't wait to get to the next thing. The next speaker, the next service commitment, the next foot washing. What does that mean, foot washing? If you're not here to serve the person that's next to you, I'm not saying you got to wash their feet. This is a proverbial thing. Well, listen, you know what it is? It's serving your brother and sister the way that God said to serve the person that's next to you. Love the person that's next to you. Love the person that's in the meeting. Love the person that doesn't have anything. Give them your shoes. Do all this stuff. And if that has, pay attention. I want you to hear, this is a spiritual MRI question right now. If that hasn't happened, Bossy, I know you contacted me about 7 a.m. meeting next week. Take it easy. I'm going to show up. Relax. If that hasn't happened in you, and you still aren't even excited about doing service, I'm going to give you a little hint. Don't be upset. You haven't recovered. I know that's hard. You're like, what do you mean? I haven't had a drink in 20 years. Yeah, but you're a selfish person. You see, if your goal is to get sober, then you're going to miss the mark. If your goal is sober, you're going to miss the mark. Do you know that if you have a dead body in your car in the parking lot and you've been sober amount of years, we'll give you a medallion and tell you you're the greatest person that there is. The bar is not high enough with the word sober. If you leave here tonight and there's nothing in you that says I should have picked up a chair, I should have seen if there was anything around me, I should have seen if I can have, if the basket comes by you and you had money in your pocket for a Red Bull and a pack of cigarettes and you didn't, you have not recovered. Now, does that mean that you're a broken person? No, it means there's more work to do. The Bible says God corrects those he loves, and that's a correction. If the basket goes by and you feel it's somebody else's responsibility, you haven't recovered. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It means there's a lot more work to do. There's never been a basket in the history of my sobriety that's went by me that I ever said to myself, it's not my time tonight to give because I don't have enough money. If I don't have enough money, I say to the person next to me, hey, can you put $1 in for me and I'll get you back next time? Or put $2 in for me, I'll get you next time. Because Alcoholics Anonymous changed my life. I came here because my life was completely unmanageable and I was using crack underneath the stairs of my house. Which may seem exotic to you. But it's not very exotic. I got hooked on crystal methamphetamine at a time in this state where you really shouldn't get hooked on crystal methamphetamine because there was nowhere to get it except outside the Copa. And if you're not gay, you have a real problem. So I was very, very gay. It is what it is.
Good Wendy Lames, baby.
I was liked what you had and willing to go to any length to get it. Keith, relax. I'll tell you why I said that. Relax. I said that because you're not looking at a guy that didn't come from the lowest of lows. You're looking at a guy that was hopeless, didn't know who he was. My family couldn't take another day with me. The sound of my voice made my dad's stomach turn. He said the sound of my voice made him sick. And for those that you know my dad, we spent the last 25 years together in every meeting with my mom, at every podium, at every event, and he couldn't get enough of my voice. Because when I exchanged my voice for God's voice, my dad fell in love with me. In the last week of his life, may God rest his soul, my mom said, Stanley, is Stevie ever going to get it? He was talking about finances, because I have an amazing way of making $10 and spending $12. And my mom said, Stanley, is Stevie ever going to get it? And my dad looked over at my mom, and he said, Marie, our son's a winner. He's a superstar. There's nothing he can't do because he has God. Now, I want you to know that I would have settled for sober. But settling for sober in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm going to give you the line that I love to give you because it's just for me, it sums it all up. It's like going to a buffet. And on that buffet, it has all the greatest food you've ever wanted. Lobster and prime rib and cracked crab and everything that you've ever wanted is on that buffet. And in the front part of that buffet is the salad section. And on that salad section is croutons. And you go and get your plate. The sober people, the people that are just for sober. You know who you are. You came here for sober. You're good with sober. You're very sober. You have faces that look very sober. You're so sober. And you let everybody else know you're sober. You go up to the salad portion and you grab your plate and you grab your crouton and your knife and your fork and you're eating and they say, how you doing? You go, so sober. And then you look over at table number 1, those ladies right over there. And they're moved on to the lobster and the cracked crab and the prime rib. It's the same buffet. You can settle for sober or you continue to go down the line where this man's at and you can have a relationship with God. And then you're going to have a life beyond your wildest dreams. And then you're going to get sober anyway. And sober is going to have a lot different meaning because you're not going to get sober for you. You're going to get sober for everybody else. And that's going to be including you. And then everyone's going to love what you're doing. You're not going to be perfect, but your family's going to love you. And they're going to say that they love being around you. And then you're going to go with your granddaughter or a daughter that said you're never going to see your granddaughter. And you're going to spend that Saturday with the granddaughter because everybody wants to be around you because you changed, because you didn't stop at sober. You continue to go on to a life beyond your wildest dreams, and you change from the inside out because you worked these steps, you developed a relationship with God, and you had experience. God bless you guys.